admission to the European Union in Europe. There's not enough right now, but it's mounting, you see. Do we not already trade? And people say, we live in a global economy. This is 2014. We've always had a global economy. Marco Polo didn't go to China so he could buy some pupil platter. It was to open up trade routes. Columbus came here to open up a trade route. He didn't realize there was a big continent in the way, a couple of continents in the way. Back in the 1770s, before we had a mint, what was the coin of preference in the United States? It was the Spanish pieces of eight. They actually minted some of them in South America. And it was, at some point we were allowed to use it as currency, but that was a nice little silver. Who cared whose face was on it? Whether it be a king of Spain or what have you. The fact is, it was a nice chunk of silver that was acceptable, divisible. And if you go to South Boston in Castle Island, there's a monument that Donald McKay, the great clipper shipbuilder, right? We were selling ice to the English in India in the 1850s. That's not bad. We didn't need any government, any European Union to make that possible, folks. You have something to sell, people want to buy, it's going to happen. Okay? Oh, I didn't read this one here. Let me go. There we go. Do we not already trade? They say it will mean more manufacturing for us and the jobs that go with it. There is no empirical evidence that these agreements lead to more jobs in manufacturing in the U.S. The history of the free trade agreements say otherwise. Based on government statistics, professional groups are promoting the Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Trans-Trade and Investment Partnership. All kinds of acronyms, right? They love that. On one hand, they say everything is getting rosy. At the same time, they say we need free trade to help the economy. Which is it? Unemployment. Since 2008, Walmart has cut 20,000 jobs. Okay? Amazon lost $126 million the second quarter of 2014. Microsoft laying off 18,000. That's not a good economy, folks. And a lot of times you see these, oh, they've created so many new jobs are created in December or whatever. Well, some of those are short-term jobs, some of those are part-time jobs, some of those are government jobs. So when you have more bureaucrats, that's not necessarily a good sign. That's a negative sign, okay? Official government figures released only cover those of the unemployment rolls and those whose unemployment has run out or given up looking for work or never worked. The majority of new jobs are part-time. It's another thing too. With NAFTA, we had a positive. We exported more things to Mexico than imported, right? And within the first year, that changed. We had a deficit. In Canada, we had a small trade deficit the first year. Now we have a huge trade deficit. But what happens in Mexico with NAFTA, while we lost a lot of manufacturing jobs, and some of these big corporations, the faceless, they don't care. They sent the factories down immediately to Mexico. But within a few years, a lot of the Mexicans were leaving the farms. Why were they leaving the farms? Because of our big grain companies putting the small farms in Mexico out of business. So the Mexicans were leaving the farm, going to the factories. Then a few years after that, Communist China was outbidding. So the factories closed, and now you have people off the farm and no factory. Where do they go? They come to the United States. Right? And it was supposed to stop illegal immigration. That's what we were told, right? Official figures of 11 to 12 million illegal immigrants has not changed for nearly a decade. So probably, when someone's lying, it's probably a whole lot more. Government and certain professional organizations understate the problem with illegal immigration to convince Americans to grant amnesty. The best way to get rid of all these illegals is not make it the incentives for them to come here. Someone said, well, you can't deport 20 million illegals. Well, the Mexican president did, right? Yeah, so you can discourage and encourage. Either way works both ways. Here's a chart, which I know you can't see, but one of them deals with families on welfare decline, right, over the years. The number of low-income people on disability grows. So we talk about, I'll answer any questions.
I just heard a figure today that 42% of the cost of the increase of Medicare is attributed to illegal aliens.
Wow.
To the point of $4.6 billion.
Oh, the illegal aliens have hundreds of hospitals have been closed, and whatever we gain, from the crime they commit. It's just, I think 20% of all criminals in federal jails are from illegal alien backgrounds. So you can speak on that issue for hours on end, and that's been covered here too. There is no evidence that free trade will help our economy. NAFTA figures used by the government and professional organizations reflect the same rhetoric relative to unemployment, illegal immigration, and welfare rolls. The statistics are designed to hide nation building. I just mentioned this book a little while ago. We could stay all day and talk about all the problems with foreign entanglements. The new book by R. Thompson tells it all. And again, you can find this on, I have it at the table, but if you're watching this on YouTube or Vimeo, you can get this through either Amazon or preferably Shop JBS. That's our online bookstore. I think it's maybe $9 or $10. It's not too expensive. Now here's George Washington. "'Tis our true policy to steer clear of permanent alliances with a portion of the foreign world." In his farewell address, he said, "have nothing to do with permanent foreign entanglements." And it's interesting that he and Jefferson were not necessarily on the same page, but when it came to this, they were. Yeah, I actually saw a bumper sticker recently. It said, with a picture of Washington, "Miss me yet." So here's Jefferson. "Commerce with all nations, alliance with none shall be our motto. I deem the essential principles of our government peace, commerce, and honest friendship with all nations, entangling alliances with none." He said that in 1801. Now, and by the way, John Quincy Adams, the man who authored the Monroe Doctrine, had a very similar sentence. He said, "We are everywhere the friends of liberty or the friends of freedom, but the defenders only of our own." So he was one of those isolationists, I guess, right? You know what an isolationist is? Joe Sobran had a great definition. An isolationist is one who neither wishes to subsidize or kill a foreigner. Now here's Karl Marx in free trade. He was in favor of free trade. Wait a minute now, I thought libertarians wanted free trade. Well, which one is it, right? Free trade breaks up old nationalities. In a word, actually it's more than one word, the free trade system hastens social revolution. Now, there's what you call classical free trade that the von Mises Foundation, led by the late great Ludwig von Mises of the Austrian School of Economics. Before you could have real free trade, certain things have to be present in both contracting nations or parties. You have to have a currency that is not manipulated by a central bank, right? Or in our case, a private bank. You have to have the means of production in the hands of the private sector. You have to have the means of communication and transportation in the hands of the private sector. You have to have a court system that would uphold the contract laws. I think there's a couple of others. Folks, that's not prevalent in too many places around the world, especially not communist China. Okay? So you don't really have classic free trade. This free trade is between one despotic nation to another. That's what this is about. Okay? We know the government is not truthful. Anyone think the government's truthful? Okay, good. All right. This is something both liberals and conservatives, freedom advocates, and what have you will agree with. Progressives, and what have you. There are forces which want us involved in world government rather than in independent United States. If you don't believe me, go to YouTube and put on George Bush New World Order. This is Daddy Bush, where he says in front of a joint session of Congress, he says, what we have here, he's talking about the first Gulf War, undeclared World War, is a real chance at this New World Order. And the UN is envisioned by its founders. Daddy Bush was a Yale graduate. I graduated from a junior college and took a few courses after that. And I know who the UN founders were. He should know. He was the head of the CIA. Should know that. Okay. History has told us that these agreements do not work. And for many other reasons, we need to stop these partnerships. This may be the most difficult campaign we have ever initiated, and so much depends on its success. There are a number of things against us, including time, a massive campaign for the partnerships within professional groups such as ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, also pushing for an Article 5 convention. Kind of interesting how they're trying to rewrite our Constitution at the same time, get us into this trade agreement, make it easier. If you change our Constitution pretty fundamentally, which is what they're advocating, what we're going to get. The Chamber of Commerce, the myriad of organizations such as the Council on Foreign Relations, World Federalists, UN Association, Trilateral Commission, Atlantic Council, Transatlantic Policy Network, etc. By the way, these slides are available. If you want any slides here, you're welcome to take them, copy them, or get them from me some other means. And the socialist leadership of the European Union and their allies here in the U.S. The European Union was established the same way they are trying to accomplish their goals here, with free trade agreements. Not many citizens of the countries of Europe are trying to get out of the EU, and there's some good information about that in this particular issue, how the EU came about. They have lost their ability to set foreign or domestic policy. In fact, it was total duplicity. They were willingly lying to people, knowingly lying about the European Union. We have a work cut out for us, but we have a plan, based on the method we used drastically to slow down the North American Union. Now, back in 2004 to 2007, we, the John Birch Society, that's almost all we did, but stop this. I mean, we're not a large organization. We think we're the most important. I remember the 2004 Democrat conventions being held here in Boston. It was a fun time, by the way, to be a JBS activist in this area. We had hundreds of copies of this, the issue you see here, the New American, this one right here. And the convention, now we weren't at the convention, but we were influencing the delegates. The delegates were staying in hotels all over the greater Boston. I had a friend of mine who was a policeman that said, well, the Ohio delegation staying here. Well, that's a big state, we gotta go there. And we attended some of the parties they had the day before and got the stuff out. And everyone was receptive. It was amazing. They had buses up there. They went to some of the tourist spots and we were handing them out as, they were putting their hands out the windows and we were putting stuff out. We got a lot of material out. We visited state houses in all 50 states, Capitol. We had distribution of DVDs, and we stopped it. And I say we, it wasn't us alone. Lou Dobbs was one of the few, the only that I know of, national media person. Like guys, people like Pat Buchanan, and there were others, of course, but we played a key role in that. We had a special issue of New American that we're going to upgrade that. Graphic, intense, direct mail piece. In fact, this particular issue of the New American, we put out a hard copy over 1 million. That's a lot. Okay, I think not what it costs for us to print one of those in mail, but it's a couple of dollars, about $1.50 maybe. We mailed out 1 million to business people. We bought, you can rent lists of manufacturing and numerous people, and thankfully it didn't happen. Email campaign, business, political donors, local politicians. Of course, you put stuff on Facebook, and all these groups probably must have Facebook pages. Speakers program, we'll have speakers, and some of you may be helping just to do a little presentation like this. You don't have to be, I'm not an expert on the free trade issue, but the old saying, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, right? You know a little bit about something, you don't hold up more than most, enough to help stop it, right? Media project built on direct mail piece, radio and television. In 05, I don't think Facebook was Facebook around in 05? I think it came online, and YouTube was something that was just coming online too. So a lot of things we didn't have then, we have now. And you can get a radio ad, a 30-second radio ad, or a minute radio ad, and put it on all of the Facebook groups and all of the social media, put it up on YouTube, and that little ad can have free of charge, as well as some radio stations, of course, and television spots too. Geo-targeted campaign at swing district congressmen, and that's what you do if there's a congressman who's sort of sitting on the fence, or is against the free trade pacts, but he's getting a bit of pressure, getting a lot of pressure. We can target our resources in those congressional districts, and that can be on any issue too. And we also have what we call geo ads on our website, the New American website, where you can put an ad just in that particular area instead of the whole country. So we can do that locally as well. Dedicated site for this trade content alerts, blogs, sign up for alerts, and there'll be a number of digital outreach. A lot of this material is all been digitized, and you can get this and pass it on. Texting program, short videos, potentially viral, 2 to 5 minute long. Some of the real short ones, I think, even some of the more, you do a man on the street interview that costs next to nothing, right? Sometimes you get more hits with that than some really well done, well edited, professional looking thing. It's a question of what's the content sometimes, right? Short articles, and sometimes like a one-pager is a lot better than some 100-page, or who has time to read it, but give me the bullet points and get going here. What we want them to do, what we want you folks to do, is to contact representatives as soon as possible. Voter Voice, share with friends, sign up for trade alerts. With Voter Voice, you can just simply email, and automatically goes to members of Congress, your 2 senators, and I always put it, if you're married, Mr. or Mrs., because that's 2 votes, right, so they're 1, right? Or the Shurtleff family. I've got 3 voters in my house, and I'll have on my immediate family, and there'll be 4 a year from now. So, and that's not the best. That's usually the worst way to communicate with your member of Congress, elected officials, through email. But if you email, you make phone calls, you email their local office and the satellite office, it's like voting more than once. It's like the Democrat operative from Boston. He had moved out to the suburbs, and he said in his will, when I die, I want to be buried in Boston so I can remain active in politics long after I'm dead, right? Okay. Campaign tools and methods, short video, I already mentioned that.